So we're going to kick off this webinar. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. The response to the invite for today's fall 2020 return webinar has been incredible. We had nearly 1,000 folks sign up. So I know it's always tough to know how many are on the webinar, but it's a pretty good number today. So thanks for taking the time to be with us, to ask questions, and to get the information you need to really be able to launch into the fall 2020 semester. My name is Anthony Fontana. I am the Executive Director for Integrated Enrollment Services here at CU Denver. I work with Link Central, so was Link Center, just switched the name over to Link Central, and we will be providing kind of a one-stop shop for services that you need as students when you have questions about if you're running into some issues with enrollment or billing or financial aid. Will be a place where you can come to have everything answered in one spot. I am co-moderating today's panel with our student body president, so I'm going to turn it over to Dan to introduce himself.
Thank you, Anthony. My name is Daniel Casillas. I'm the current student body president at CU Denver. I'm going into my 3rd year at the university. Hopefully I'll make it to the end. I'm majoring in public health and also minoring in chemistry. Also just super, super excited to get back into school. I can't believe we have, 4 weeks left till the beginning of the semester, which is crazy. I haven't done anything yet during the summer. Hopefully I can, but we still have a ton of time. Well, super, super excited to be co-hosting this with Anthony. We'll get started soon.
Great. Thanks, Dan. So today we're going to have the opportunity to hear from a great set of campus experts. And just so you know, our folks are going to introduce themselves here in a second. There's also a team behind the scenes because we know that you have quite a few questions. I think we had over 120 already come through before we started today, and we know that there's going to be even more today. So we have a team that's behind the scenes as well that will be helping to either answer those questions in the chat, or they'll be sending them to Dan and I to send to our panelists to be able to answer. So if you would like to ask a question, you can use the Q&A function. It should be at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on your phone, you can tap the screen of your phone and it should pop up for you to ask questions in real time as we move through today. We have an hour and a half set aside, so we'll be here until 4:30. But there's also a safe return inbox that you can send emails to afterwards if maybe your question didn't get answered. We'll make sure you have all of that contact info at the end. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So Nellie, if you wouldn't mind jumping in.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nelia Viveros, and I'm the interim Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for both the University of Colorado Denver campus and for our Anschutz Medical campus. I'm glad to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Genya Herndon. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Student and Community Engagement. Really excited to be here this afternoon with you and hopefully address most of your questions, if not all of them. And if not, we're here to certainly support you along the way as we all navigate this together. So thanks for having us here and thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Todd Haggerty. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Budget. So any questions regarding dollars, please ask them today. Be glad to answer them for you all, but glad to be here and look forward to it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Hupfeld. I am an Associate Dean with the School of Public Affairs, and I was part of the planning team for thinking about safe return in the fall, and I'm now one of the co-leads for the implementation team to make sure that we all have a safe return and we are ready to go when fall starts.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Hamilton. I'm the Director of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, and I'll be here today to answer any questions related to your classes. And I'm excited to talk with you today about this, and I've been on that Safe Return implementation team with Kelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Tracer. I'm an Associate Dean for Student Success in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I'm also one of the co-founders of our undergraduate program in public health that Daniel mentioned he was majoring in. But I'm mostly here today in my capacity as one of the co-chairs of the safety committee. So our job is to make sure that everybody has a great learning experience, but does so in a safe and health promoting environment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Stokes. I'm one of the International Services Specialists for International Student and Scholar Services. In my capacity at the university, I advise all the international students in our business school, our School of Architecture and Planning, and our College of Arts and Media. So I'm mainly here today to try and give updates from International Student and Scholar Services about what you all have probably been seeing in the news since last week, and today about updates from the US federal government about how international students will be maintaining status in the fall term. And yeah, I look forward to providing more information. Thanks.
Thank you all for being here today and for talking with the group here. And also thanks to everybody behind the scenes helping out with the Q&A chat. But we're gonna dive into probably the most asked question that we saw come through. And so Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind talking a little, could you please describe the course formats for the fall? And then there's kind of a follow-up question once we get through what those formats look like.
Absolutely. I can use mute and unmute. We have 4 course formats for the fall semester, and that was designed to maximize student flexibility and allow students to select course formats that are going to work best for them in the fall. So the 4 formats are online. This format would be a course that is primarily designed to be no on-campus components and a flexible schedule, learning in an online environment. So the advantages might be you can do the coursework more at your own pace and a little more flexibility. So if you're working a job with unpredictable hours, this might appeal to you. We also have a remote format. This is a course format where it's designed to use Zoom for pre-scheduled live meetings patterns, and it may include some other online components. There is no on-campus component to the remote courses. So you get that face-to-face interaction with classmates and with your instructors from the comfort of your home. The hybrid course format is designed to be a mix of both on-campus meetings, pre-scheduled live on campus, and flexible scheduled learning in an online setting. So you get some flexibility, you get some on-campus connection, and it's kind of a mix of both of those things. And the on-campus format, finally, is one that is going to be taught primarily on campus in pre-scheduled meeting patterns. There may be other online digital kind of components to go with it, but it's primarily going to be on campus. So this would be kind of your maximum physical connection to campus and maximum in-person instructor to student interactions.
Thanks, Lindsay. And the follow-up to that is, so if I have a class that's listed as a hybrid, but I'm not feeling comfortable about coming to campus, will my professor work with me if I can't come to campus? What does that look like?
Absolutely. So we are committed to coming up with solutions for all of our students. We are investing in technology so students have the option to Zoom into the courses that are being offered on campus or in the hybrid on-campus components, and coming up with other alternatives to give students access to the course if they cannot come to campus because of safety or health reasons. So we're really maximizing access to all courses regardless of the format, and students should kind of work a little individually with their faculty member about what their plans may be for the on-campus or hybrid courses and how they might want to either Zoom in or access recordings of that course.
Great, thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Lindsay. I do have one question. I know last semester I absolutely loved going to IPI. I very much miss it a lot. And that's where I did all of my homework. This question is for David. Will there be places where students can sit down on campus and work on their remote courses?
So the short answer to that is yes, very much so. We are going to have students who are taking a mix of remote courses that they're accessing via their handheld device or their computer, as well as students who are taking on-campus courses. So we absolutely have to have spaces for students who are on campus taking a class and then need to access their remote class within an hour or 2 hours after that on-campus class. So what we're doing right now is doing an inventory of on-campus spaces, and we will be designating spaces for students as what we're calling landing zones, where they can sit down like you did in the spring and in the fall and be able to access their remote classes from these landing spaces. The Auraria Library has a cafe. That cafe won't be operating as a cafe, but instead be operating as one of those landing spaces, just to give one example. So there will be landing spaces, and we will be putting those on the Safe Return website as they're identified.
Thank you.
Tyler, this is maybe the question of the day, or at least of the moment, with the ever-changing world that we're living in. So we had a number of questions come through from our international student population. Their question is, what does my schedule need to look like in order for me to meet eligibility requirements for my visa for the fall semester? And can I take a course that's identified as remote?
Yeah, all really good questions. Thanks very much. So as I'm sure most international students have been doing, whether they're in the US or abroad, they've been closely following the news and perhaps government websites. The two main news events that have come through about this in recent days, the first one happened on January 6th, last Monday, and then another one just happened about 2 hours ago. The one that happened on January 6th said that the rules that international students, and primarily we're talking about students in F1 status, about what they need to follow to maintain their status in the fall semester, what kind of courses they need to schedule. The federal government informed universities that it would be one set of rules last Monday, and then as of today, there's been some changes that have come through. So I think what would be most useful is for me to explain the rules as they were over the last week, and then give a little bit of follow-up information that ISSS plans to do to keep international students informed. So last Monday, the government, which is the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, the US federal government agency that oversees the US visa programs for international students in F and J status, provided guidance to universities, giving universities 3 different pathways by which to keep F1 students in status for fall: going to a fully online program, returning back to normal campus operations, or doing a sort of hybrid model where students could take a mixture of more online classes than the normal rules allow, but still have to have an in-person component for the hybrid model. Over the last week, we've been advising students that if they're an undergraduate student, they need to enroll in at least 12 credits in the fall. If they're a graduate student, they need to enroll in at least 5 credits for the fall. Those things haven't changed. What is a little bit unclear right now is how much of an in-person component you have to have for fall. So the guidance we got last week from the government said that international students need to have, of their either 5 or 12 credit course load, based on whether they're a graduate or an undergraduate student, of that, they need to have at least one class that has some kind of in-person component. And the way ISSS was able to define that was an independent study credit, an internship credit, hybrid type credit, on-campus type credit, or thesis or dissertation would satisfy that. A class schedule under the last week guidance of fully online or fully remote would not satisfy the standard. As of today, there's been some litigation in the United States, some court cases that have come to light where some large universities in the US have sued the federal government regarding the guidance that came out last week about F1 students. And as of a few hours ago, ISSS learned that the Department of Homeland Security, which operates all immigration law and agencies in the United States, actually rescinded the guidance saying that students couldn't have a fully online or remote schedule for the fall semester and maintain status. what is not clear and what ISSS is still trying to wait from further guidance regarding is what that means in practice for F1 students, because it either means one of two things: that we revert back to the completely normal rules saying that that international students have always had to abide by, or they have to have at least some in-person component to their coursework, or it reverts back to the guidance that the federal government provided to universities in March when the pandemic first started, saying that students could go home and maintain their status from their home countries, maybe in a different state. It didn't have to be in Colorado. So I realize that this isn't very concrete and students are looking for answers right now. Unfortunately, ISSS is doing its best to try and now go back and figure out how this new development is going to impact international students for fall. But we're working hard to get the information to you that you need. We have all of your email addresses. We'll be conveying it to you as soon as possible. If you have any questions for ISSS specifically during this time, again, we'll be emailing you and conveying information to you directly. As you can imagine, our volume of requests and emails have been pretty high the last week and a half, 2 weeks. So if we don't get back to you immediately, it's not because we didn't get your question or we don't want to respond to you and get you the information we need, but we're doing our best to let all international students know at once what needs to happen, and then try and deal with international students on a case-by-case basis to make sure that they have the information they need to keep in status. So thanks very much for bearing with me about that.
Thanks, Tyler. And just a quick clarification point. I want to make sure I didn't mishear you. The original information came out, it was just last week, July 6th, right?
July 6th, yes.
Cool.
For the,
I think I may have heard January 6th, but I wanted to make sure that it was July 6th.
I apologize. I said,
no, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's been a long week. So just to clarify, thank you, Anthony. So the original guidance for how international students, the rules they must follow for maintaining status in fall semester, came out on July 6th, last Monday. Today, that guidance has basically been rescinded by the government. So it was one way for about a week and a day, and then now it's changed. So we have to reassess what that means for international students to make sure that we advise them accordingly. The event that happened today was that guidance saying that students could not maintain status with only online and remote classes, as they were able to do in the spring and summer term, has been rescinded. But we don't know exactly what that reverts us back to as far as how we advise students for maintaining status in fall. So it's quite complicated. We apologize for any confusion here on behalf of our government, and we're hoping to make it clear as soon as we can for international students how to navigate this. And we'll be in contact and we'll provide you the resourcing that you need to know.
Awesome. Well, that's great information. In my experience, I absolutely loved being a part of the Student Fee Review Committee the past 2 years. This question is surrounded around resources, tuition, and fees. Todd, this is directed to you. Will tuition be reduced since a lot of the classes will not be on campus?
Great. That's actually a question that we've been receiving quite a bit, and actually it's been part of the nationwide conversation that everyone has been looking at. And as we quickly moved remote for the spring term and also for summer, we did make a policy here that we were not going to refund or reduce tuition. And for fall, we are staying consistent with that plan, that we are not making any reductions or changes to tuition. And it's important to note that it goes back historically that tuition rates, whether it's been in person or online, the tuition rate in and of itself has been the same. So there's never been a change in the tuition rate based on modality. What really we will be looking at, and just as we did in spring and for summer, is looking at fees. And Daniel, you know a lot about the fees and know the students' strong role in fees, and knowing that how much we have to, what a vital part is that they play in the student life. And for spring, we did have to make some tough decisions here about because of our wellness center having to be closed, of refunding those fees. Also, once RTD went effectively free, that we refunded over some of those fees, and then also waived a number of fees for the summer semester. As we look ahead and prepare for the fall term, we're actually finalizing a lot of those plans as we speak, and we hope to have an announcement coming out here in the next couple of days here, exactly how we are going to handle our fees. But we are really truly trying to take into account of what services can students access, and using that as the barometer or the gauge for what can we assess these fees or not? And so that will be the test that we will be using here, and really coming public with all the information we have here so students can plan financially around what they should be expected to pay for in the fall term.
Awesome. I have two more follow-up questions. Are there any updates with what is happening with the Wellness Center?
That's great. So the Wellness Center, as we were closely following, and we need to adhere to the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Colorado Department of Higher Education guidance on the Wellness Center. And as of right now, we are planning that it will be open for the fall, and it will be opened in limited fashion to support social distancing, physical distancing throughout. I will say that this is going to be an ever-evolving topic based on what the current climate and how COVID is reacting in our community and what steps that our public health officials do take. But at this point, that is one thing that will be open. And I will also say the Wellness Center provides a wealth of virtual classes as well. So for those students who are continuing, you have the access right now to take some of those virtual classes. And I know that those will be continuing into the fall regardless. So I would say take advantage of those classes and what the Wellness Center can offer right now.
Awesome, thank you. One more. What services and resources are usually paid for by student fees that will be available in the fall?
Well, probably the biggest one that we can always talk about here is this fee called the student services fee. And the student services fee covers a lot of those really critical student support services that are available. They were available in person, and now we've made them available in a remote online environment. And those include such things as career services, as the Academic Success and Advising Center, as LGBTQ Student Resources Center, and the Writing Center, Veteran and Military Services. So a range of services that are all covered by this fee that students pay, and they will be continuing to provide services throughout the fall term, whether or not we are in our hybrid, remote, or in-person environment.
Awesome, that's great information.
Thanks, Todd. I think along with kind of the modality of classes in tuition and fees, one of the most common questions that we saw come through over the last week or so has really been around the safety and what the campus protocol is going to look like to ensure safety for students, faculty, staff, visitors. And so, David, I with your work on the safety team, I'm wondering if you might be able to field a couple questions here. First one is, what is CU Denver doing to make sure the campus is a safe place and that students can stay well?
Yeah, so that's a really, really important question. And I know that we're all, concerned about staying healthy, and that applies to students, faculty, and staff. And dealing with safety protocols has been my life for the last 5 months. So we convened the CU Denver Safe Planning Committee. At the same time, many of you are aware that we share the campus with some other institutions, and the overall campus is run by the Auraria Higher Education Center. So there was an AHEC, that's the acronym, an AHEC Safe Planning Return Committee. I was on that as well. And now those have transitioned over to an implementation committee. So there's way too many protocols that we've developed to list here, but let me give you some of the most essential. The first is that everyone returning to campus, students, faculty, and staff, need to take an online training, and that's available through your student portal if you're a student, or through your employee portal if you're staff or faculty. That's called COVID-19 Safe Return to CU Denver. That, because I can't list all of the protocols here today, that's going to inform people about the safety protocols that we've put in place. Second of all, after you take that COVID course and receive a certificate, which you can save on your mobile device or print out and have with you when you come to campus, if you're coming to campus, we have a bunch of campus protocols. There's a daily health screening that needs to be done where an individual asks questions, answers questions, about COVID-19 symptoms that they've had recently, and hopefully they haven't. or about contact with other individuals who either have COVID or may have COVID. There's also a temperature check involved in that daily health screening. And once you've answered those questions and you've answered them in a way that indicates that you're healthy, you are actually cleared to come to campus. Right now, when people come to campus, they're given a daily color-coded wristband indicating that they've passed the daily screening. The most important protocols, and certainly not the only protocols, but the most important protocols that we've put in place, and obviously the entire country has put in place, are social distancing and using a facial covering. So social distancing means that you're keeping a 6-foot distance from your peers and your coworkers at all times. And a facial covering means that you're wearing something covering your nose and mouth. And this could be a mask. It's most commonly a mask, but it might also be a plastic face shield, or even for some individuals where it's more comfortable, a bandana. So we are mandating that people wear facial coverings at all times on campus, both inside buildings as well as outside and moving around campus. And we've put into place a series of enhanced cleaning and disinfecting protocols on campus. And these have been put in place by both CU Denver and again by the Auraria Higher Education Center. So those are just a few of the highlights, but there are literally dozens of protocols that we've put in place, and many of those are outlined in the COVID Safe Return course, and they will all be up on our Safe Return website, and there will be lots of communications coming out between now and the start of fall semester as well.
Thanks, David. A quick follow-up on that too, which again, something that we've seen a lot in the news and kind of across the country, is the situation of if somebody is not following one of those safety protocols, whether it's a student, faculty, staff, what happens then? Yeah,
well, that's a difficult question. So most of these protocols are indeed recommendations, and they are not laws. And so it's, enforcement does not fall to some sort of law enforcement body. For that reason, that COVID course that we now have for the return of campus, it includes a pledge that you will adhere to all of the campus protocols that we've put in place. In addition, we have a Dean of Students office located in the Tivoli, with a sub-office that's an office of conduct, and cases can be referred to the conduct office in the Dean of Students office if there's sort of flagrant violations. But we're hoping there are not going to be flagrant violations. Instead, that we're all going to play our part in having a safe and healthy community. Alas, we've kind of seen in the recent week or so what happens when people take a cavalier attitude, and we know that in many states, COVID is spiking again, and that's simply a product of people not wearing the facial coverings and not maintaining the social distancing. So the final thing I just wanted to mention that pertains to us is that we are going to have CU Denver ambassadors around campus whose job it is to simply gently and in a friendly way remind people of what the protocols are, to act as information resources that people can go to ask about the protocols if there are questions. And right now on campus, AHAC has somewhere between 6 and 10 tents with information ambassadors as well. So we're hoping to be able to maintain compliance for faculty, staff, and students in a friendly way and in a way that promotes community, because truly we're all in this together.
Thanks, David.
Awesome. Well, I know the past 2 months with social injustice has been resonating within universities and communities across the country and I cannot be more proud of the response that our university has had. This question is for Nelly. What is the university doing to make sure that the campus and online environments are safe, welcoming, and inclusive for all students?
Thanks, Daniel. So obviously campus environment matters, and your belonging matters. So the job of university leadership, right, is to ensure that you'll rise to your capacity, and no matter what your social identity is. So being more diverse and inclusive and equitable, right, means that we become stronger, CU in the city, and we believe that a core intellectual skill set, right, is sharpened by diversity. So with that said, as Daniel mentioned, in the last few months, we've seen an incredible amount of traffic in the world of social justice and equity. And part of our response, being in this online environment, for example, has been our social justice teach-ins. So we're about to hold our second one on August 28th, where we're going to be dealing very squarely and directly with this issue of anti-Black violence. And what this point in history, this inflection point in history, is calling universities, particularly public urban universities like ourselves, to become. That's just one example of how we're translating some of this diversity work online. Following those sessions, so we have keynote speakers and we present student activists who are working in this space. We have breakout community identity groups where people can have safe spaces to talk about how they can help be allies, how they can help download and unpack some of the issues they may be facing. But we also invest in a lot of offices that will continue to be here for you, both in this online environment and in a hybrid capacity. So there's the Center for Identity Inclusion. We have our Student Life Office. We have Disability Resources Center. We have an Office of Equity, which is our adjudicatory arm. The Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion obviously is looking at things like mandatory trainings. So we're looking at developing modules on equity leadership and implicit bias and unconscious bias and what that looks like in the online environment. We're looking at diversity leadership courses as well, and about recruitment and retention for all of our students. Part of this is also being driven, July 1st, we welcomed a new Chancellor Michelle Marks. She's been on a listening tour right now with a lot of these groups and is looking, I think it's going to be on July 20th, in fact. There'll be the first release of a letter to the campus about next steps in this world of social justice and the university's commitment to be a better racial equity partner in this work. Daniel was part of our first social justice teach-in. He's going to be part of our second one, I hope. And we're hoping to see you all there and keep an eye out on the space of diversity, equity, inclusion. There's a lot going on there. We have a listserv that hits about 40,000 of you. So that's been a big way for us to communicate with people, and keep a lookout for the training. I think that is going to be our next big lift in this space as we figure out what that looks like for all of you in the online environment, and look for opportunities about how you can get engaged. We're constantly thinking about that. We are looking for help with this work. We have a lot of stuff coming out of the Center for Identity Inclusion, a lot of spaces that touch on intersectional identities and how we can help support you through not just the pandemic, but what's going on right now in the national spotlight.
Thanks, Nellie. I was in Dr. Mark's listening session on Friday. It was really heartening to see the new chancellor come in and spend the first 10 days really focused on such a critical issue right now in our history. Thanks for providing some additional perspective on that too. Todd, I'm gonna send a couple more questions your way, or these are really focused around our parking and RTD situation. So do we know if students will be able to get the RTD college pass this fall?
That's a great question, one that I know that has a lot of interest out there. As you know, being part of a public urban campus, that RTD is the main way that a lot of our students access not only to the campus, but may also access transportation to their jobs or to see their families and friends. And so RTD is a vital part of the connections throughout the community. We also know parking is also very limited on campus as well. And as those of you know who've ever tried to show up on the first day of when class starts, trying to find a parking space is a challenge. And if you won, you really feel like you won the day. But as we start to, to get to the point of the question here, we've been negotiating, and I say we as in Metropolitan State University and also the Community College of Denver, with the Auraria campus leadership with RTD right now on various options for the fall term and the College Pass program, and trying to recognize and weigh the different options here of having, as all three campuses, of having a reduced number of students on campus. What does that mean there? RTD's decision to either curtail or eliminate certain transportation routes as they deal with their own financial crises. And then on top of the public health issues regarding it. And so this is one where we are currently looking to wrap up those negotiations very quickly here. I know that's a kind of saying that we don't have the answer quite yet, but we will have it very quickly here, and one that we'll want to communicate out to students, and one that regardless of which way this goes, we're committed to making sure that we can support those students who need a vital transportation connection to the campus or to support themselves. And that's why we have great things like the Loving Links program and others regardless. So I will say be on the lookout for an announcement coming here very shortly specifically on this. And also to just relate it down to parking for those who may not feel comfortable to take public transportation. We do, as I alluded to, on a normal semester, parking is very limited on campus. We anticipate that there'll be some flexibility this coming term with both Metro and CCD both having reduced number of students on campus as well. So there will be increased flexibility that we will have there. And as part of our safe return team, and I'll let David Tracer, if he knows more, he can always comment on this, that we're looking at other additional options that we can look at for parking for those who may feel that that's the best way for them to get to campus if they indeed need to come to campus.
Great.
Thank you.
Daniel, I'm going to jump in with another one here really quick for Lindsay. We've had a number of questions come through asking about some of the different, could you just kind of discuss the lab options for like chem students, as well as what it might look like for music performance in this virtual setting?
Definitely. So I'll start with the music performance question. And what has been already determined is piano, drum, percussion, and electronic digital instrument applied lessons will be offered on campus, because we understand that those resources are not always easily available at home. You don't often have a full piano or electronic digital instrument in your home. So those will be on campus. Other instruments and voice lessons will be taking place online. Ensembles will have an on-campus or hybrid component as well. And if you have specific questions related to your courses with music and performance and those types of things, the Music and Entertainment Industry Studies Department will be holding a town hall tomorrow. We will put the information into the chat for everybody, but it's from 2 to 3 p.m. tomorrow, and it'll be a Zoom session to answer very specific questions about the music performance classes, safety protocols within the music performance areas, and questions specific to access to the music facilities and the recording stations and things of that nature. As far as the chemistry labs go, and all the labs, not just chemistry, I know the faculty are working very hard right now to try and create options so that if a student is unable to come to campus, they could complete the lab remotely. And but it's going to look differently for the different labs. So I encourage students to reach out to your faculty member that is posted for that lab section to ask them how they plan to run that particular lab. Some might be staged kind of in a cohort model where every other week you come into lab to do hands-on components, and then in the off weeks you are remote and working on other things related to that. And all that should be discussed with the individual faculty members, and they should be disseminating that information via the syllabus and the Canvas portals as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, I know a lot of this information was touched on within the past 45 minutes, but this question is for David surrounding protocols for coming back to campus. So can I come back to campus anytime I want, or is there something I need to do first, anything I need to watch?
So I addressed this a little bit, so let me reiterate that there will be a COVID-19 course available to students through their portals that they actually have to take before coming back to campus. Those are available right now on a limited basis for employees and researchers who've come back to campus, but over the next month, that will become available to students through their student portal. I did mention the health check as well. The one thing that I wanted to mention is that if students have an on-campus class or a hybrid class, then they will be automatically put on a list that allows them access to campus, and most particularly allows them to go through the health screening procedure and enter buildings on campus. We have to have some process, although we are encouraging students who are not taking on-campus courses or hybrid courses to do as much work as they can remotely and not come to campus unless they absolutely have reason to come to campus to kind of maintain our campus density of people. We realize that there are some student support services that students will need to access or want to access in person from time to time. And so we will have a procedure in place for students not taking an on-campus or hybrid class to be able to come to campus and access student services. And they will be able to do that either through their school or college or through our student services offices in Links Connect.
Awesome, thank you.
So, Genya, I'm wondering if you might be able to answer a question that we've had come through a number of times as well about internships this year. Some of our degree programs require internships and other students have things that they're scheduled. So if a student needs to do an internship this year, how will that work?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. We've been working really hard since the spring with our employer partnerships and internship partners. And right now we're landing in the same spot that they are as we're looking at the different guidelines and what's being required for social distancing in employer sites as well. So right now all internships, and there's still a lot of them, are encouraged to be remote. However, if an internship cannot be completed remotely, students can work with their internship advisor to explore other options that include a hybrid internship or working on site, provided the employer follows all public health guidelines and promotes social distancing. For students who are still intrigued by this option or are still trying to determine what next steps they should take, please reach out to our Experiential Learning Center at Links Connect for more information. We have virtual appointments that can be scheduled on Handshake. And also there's a lot of information online through our website. And we also do have a virtual front desk that makes it really easy to get your questions answered. So that would be my suggestion in terms of getting more information. But essentially we are working with our partners to make sure that we're providing yet again a safe way to provide internships, but at the same time being mindful of the different guidelines that are out there from our partners in public health.
Thanks, Genya. Lindsay, we had a kind of a follow-up come in from one of the earlier questions around the hybrid class. Like, what should students expect for day one of their hybrid class?
That's a great question. We have asked all faculty to address that in their Canvas shell. So all faculty will be using the Canvas learning management system that all students have access to for their courses as a homepage of sorts, and there will be a welcome page posted for each course that will have that information about the meeting patterns and specifically information about that first day meeting pattern. Some faculty might request that all students participate remotely for the first day of class just so they can set up the schedule for the on-campus component, or they may want everyone to come to campus for the first day of class. But faculty members will be communicating that via Canvas.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Well, To get to my position, I had to take a few on-campus jobs and also utilized my work study that was provided to me. This question is for Genya. Last year I had an on-campus job. Can I still find a work study job that is either on campus or virtual? And how do I find those positions?
Yeah, so Daniel, you know that student employees are a vital part of CU Denver. So you can find an on-campus and virtual opportunities still via Handshake. So we encourage students to continue to access that. If they have questions, visit the Career Center at Links Connect for more information. Again, we share the front desk, virtual front desk, and so you can certainly schedule appointments that way with a career counselor to help you with your search via Handshake. But yes, student employees are still very much an active part of our campus community, whether we're remote or not. So please do, I encourage everyone to get online and check out Handshake.
Awesome. And to kind of bounce on that, I'm involved in student government, as everyone knows, and we are currently hiring. And we're hiring on the website that Genya mentioned, Handshake. You could just apply. It's just one general application. We are going to be interviewing in the next month, so get it in as soon as possible. And I believe that especially now, leadership across universities, across the nation is needed. And so I guess the more voice we have and the better perspective we have on situations that we have faced and are going to face, it's going to be detrimental to the future of this university and universities across the country. One more question for Genya. What types of events, clubs, and activities will there be for students in the fall? And will people who can't come to campus be able to participate?
Yeah, and Daniel, you could probably help me answer this question as well, because SGA has been actively involved in our development of various different ways for students to participate and engage, whether on campus or off campus. Yeah, this is going to be an evolving situation, of course, and as others have mentioned, we have to follow the guidelines that are put forth by our partners in public health. And right now, on-campus events are going to be more difficult than not, and so we're wanting to make sure that we're able to provide an experience and an environment in which our students are safe, but also can be engaged. So over the last several months, our team in student life and campus community have been very active in identifying alternative options for students to participate in events or engage in meetings and do so virtually in a safe way. So, so Daniel, you could probably shed some light on some of the experiences that you've had in that. But again, we're also creating other platforms for students to be engaged. We have YouTube channel, we have various webinars, we have workshops that are planned. So I encourage students to continue to look and on our website and or through our various Facebook pages, Instagram, etc., to sort of learn what's coming up and ways in which they can engage and be involved. This is going to be a little bit different in our housing and dining situation, so we are still opening Links Crossing this fall. Students, however, will be in singles and will not have roommates. And so the programming there also will be adapted and modified slightly, but ways in which we can continue to build on our community and develop community and develop relationships within our colleagues and within our student population. So I'm encouraged. I know that this is not ideal, and I know that everyone feels a little bit like this is going to be difficult, but I have been very pleasantly surprised in seeing how our students have engaged virtually and in other ways with each other and with us. And so we'll continue to build and innovate that over this fall and over the next couple weeks. We'll be highlighting and updating our websites and other platforms so people are well informed of what's coming up and ways in which they can engage. Daniel, please feel free to certainly add on to that response.
Yeah, so towards the end of last semester, and I believe a few weeks back, we hosted some virtual games. And we were giving out prizes, and we still plan on hosting those same virtual games next semester. And we're also, like I said, we're also hiring. I believe it's without a commute. We're not going to be meeting on campus for our Senate meetings. So less time to waste on the road. I believe it's an amazing opportunity to get involved, like I said, in a leadership position now. Our events and planning team is trying really, really hard to come up with more ideas to engage with the student body, because I believe I was captain of the men's volleyball team, I was in biology club, and so I know that community. I know how important that is to the environment of the campus, and to be able to be a part of a campus that houses 43,000 students. It's really been life-changing for me, and I think that we haven't lost the community. We are adjusting to a different community, and I believe that starts with student government, and we were elected into these positions for a reason, because you guys wanted us to. And so I think that's an obligation for us to create the same, if not a better community, a tighter community. And so like I said, I'm super, super excited to get back into the fall semester. Although I really enjoyed the summer, I do miss the faculty and the students and the interaction.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to Daniel and his team, and everybody who's been working so hard on providing these opportunities for students to engage and continue to provide our campus with the community, developing community that we're working so hard to have you participate in. You know, we talked at a recent, actually, we had a training recently for a lot of our SGA leaders, and we talked about how we're going to make the most of this opportunity. What are we going to take away from it, and how are we going to build from it? And there was recently somebody who came out who said that the world is not ready itself for our plans. And so we're really adapting ourselves to making sure that we're mindful of what's needed to continue to develop our community, to build friendships, especially for our first year students. I know that this is going to be an interesting way to enter your college career, but we're committed to making sure you feel very much a part of our campus community, and are proud to be a Lynx. So I'm grateful to have the students actively involved with our teams as we develop these different ways to engage and to feel connected here at CU.
Awesome, thank you.
David, we had a question come in, and I was on a webinar with you last week that you answered really well. Can you talk about the contact tracing policy and what that process is going to look like?
Sure. Let me first say what contact tracing is, and that is that if we identify a positive case on campus, actually in the city of Denver, if there's any positive case that's identified, they're contacted by a case investigator. The case investigator finds out the contacts that that positive case was with over the last several days. And then a contact tracer, that information is passed on to a contact tracer who then contacts those individuals, usually by phone, sometimes by email, and there's no name divulged, so this is private information, but they're told that they were in contact with someone who either tested positive or has verifiable symptoms of COVID, and they are then told to self-quarantine. So the Denver Public Health Department is very strapped for resources, and so what we've done is put into place, it's actually occurring right now, so it's not complete, but it's in progress. We're putting into place a team of case investigators and contact tracers to be able to find out the contacts just on campus, not in their communities, but just on campus for any positive cases, should positive cases occur, and then contact tracers to notify those positive cases that they need to self-quarantine for the recommended period of time. So I mentioned that I'm one of the founders of our undergraduate program in public health, and what we're doing is putting together a student team of case investigators and contact tracers. There is now a state online training for both case investigators and contact tracers. It's online, takes about 4 hours to complete. I've actually completed it myself. and the students will train, and this will not only give them a source of income if they're a work-study student or an hourly student, but actually will give them experiential learning like we had never dreamed they would be getting, and we had hoped they would not be getting, but alas, we're going to take lemons and make lemonade. And this will be under the direction of myself and other faculty members from the Department of Public Health within the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And we will be putting into play a contact tracing team and a case investigation team. And they'll all be taking privacy training, investigation training, and contact tracing training, and certified by the state.
That's great. Not necessarily an experiential learning process we anticipated at the beginning of 2020, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And contact tracing actually gets done for other public health conditions besides COVID. And so it's a useful skill for students to have experience with.
Awesome. Well, I know that's going to create a lot of opportunities for students who want to get involved to really dive deep into this. Yeah, so I do have one question. So last semester, I know, I believe it was early March, we just kind of turned into a remote university, but not a lot of students had access to Wi-Fi or technology or the necessary tools to access the classroom. So does anyone have any advice for students who don't have access to those resources?
Hi, Daniel, I'll take this one. So yes, we definitely know there's a need for some students to access adequate technology for their schoolwork. And so if you are having any difficulties with those technology needs, please reach out to student success at ucdenver.edu, and we will put that into the chat for you. And student success will work with those students to create access to laptops, hotspots, or webcams, whatever is necessary.
Thank you.
And also, I'm going to make the same plug that Todd made earlier, but our Loving Links Fund as well through our Dean of Students office. Something that as students you might not see or know, but there's a lot of folks across the state, but as well as across the campus that donate to this. And they had a pretty successful drive as soon as we transitioned to a remote situation. And I know that a lot of staff and faculty came together and donated some funds there. So if you are experiencing hardships, if you are experiencing, inability to access technology that you need to do your classwork, if you are having food insecurity, housing insecurity, please use the Loving Links Fund. There's an application process. They're moving through those applications pretty swiftly. But there are those supports to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful, both in the classroom as well as outside of it. So it's again through the Dean of Students office is where you can find that. It's the Loving Links Fund. We have had a number of housing questions, so we're actually going to pull in one of our invisible panelists, Cade, to introduce himself and talk a little about what social distancing in the residence hall looks like. And I'm actually going to toss in another question that I've fielded a few times, which is what happens if a student needs to quarantine and they're living in campus housing. So Cade.
Everyone, I'm Cade Ross. I'm the Director of Housing and Dining. So I'm going to start with the social distancing and then I will get to the quarantine question. So there are a few areas where we are looking at our programming piece is the number one thing. And so a lot of the questions we've been getting have been about, how does my student who's living in housing not feel socially isolated? And so we've been working very hard since early May to really build a programming model that's inclusive of meeting those student needs while at the same time maintaining the public health guidance for social distancing. And we've built a model that I believe will meet all the current criteria while at the same time be adaptable moving forward. And so what we're really looking at is a lot of Zoom intensive programming to begin with. While at the same time, there is plans for some, what I'm calling door-to-door activities, where the RA staff, the professional staff are coming to the students' room while still maintaining social distance and just doing fun and interactive activities with them within the comfort of their own space. One of the other pieces that we're also adhering to is the campus mask guidance, and so students are required to wear masks outside of their suites. And so we're still following those pieces. There is some signage that's also being installed within the residence hall to help students maintain social distancing, which will also include the dining hall at the cyber cafe. We've also started the process of installing shields at our front desks in order to protect our staff as well as our students. In addition, we are working on a process for getting students their packages at their rooms rather than having them come to the front desk. We haven't quite figured all those pieces out yet, but we will get there as we get closer to that point. Hopefully that answered the entire question, Anthony. Okay, and then as far as quarantine goes, we have set aside a number of rooms which meet all the quarantine guidance. So there are a number of rooms within the building that are single bedrooms that have their own bathroom that a student could quarantine in. In addition, many of our rooms already meet that guidance. And so we have a number of bedrooms that already are, while they share a common space, they are off from the bedroom itself shuts off along with the bathroom. And then we are working with Sodexo, who is our dining services provider, to deliver meals to those students as they need them. And the Sodexo staff will bring those to the actual student's room, leave them there for them, and work with them as far as dietary guidance and any restrictions that the student may have as far as what they can and cannot eat.
Excellent, thank you. Had another question come in about testing and what sorts of testing options there are on campus if a student, faculty member, or staff would like to get a COVID test.
So I guess I can take that. The health center at Auraria has capacity to test virtually everybody on campus, faculty, staff, and students who need a test. The people who are prioritized for testing are people who have been in contact with someone who is verified positive or someone who is having active symptoms of COVID. So those tests are not just generally available to someone who says, hey, I'd like to have a test. We would run out of tests quickly if that were the case. So there is priority, but that said, the health center at Auraria has a capacity to do thousands of tests.
Great, thank you. And I'm gonna ask another question here that I think it came through a couple times and we've answered it through our Safe Return inbox as well. And I think it applies to me as I'm a student as well as a staff member on campus, and Daniel obviously is a student as well. So the course formats have changed up on our schedules. Are those solidified? Are those staying as they are, or could there still be some changes in flux there? And this is how we know it's a tricky question.
So I can take a stab at answering that. So for the most part, the courses should stay the same. There may be an isolated case here or there where we discover that we might need to change up a room depending on what technology is available, those kinds of things. We are not looking for major changes to schedules at this point. And if your schedule does change, you'll be notified about that.
Great, thank you. Another one just came through, and maybe this is David. I'm not sure if you're the best person, but what will a CU Denver socially distanced classroom look like? Can you kind of describe what that will look like?
That is me. And thank you for asking that question. And boy, have we been engaged in a heavy lift over the last month. In the past, if the enrollment for a class was, for example, 42, you would be put in a room that held somewhere between 42 and maybe 45 seats. Now, if you are in a class with an enrollment of 42, you're going to be put in a classroom that holds 150 plus. So we have engaged in, with our Office of Institutional Planning, we have gone through every single classroom and laboratory on campus, calculated what the space requirements are to meet the restrictions of social distancing, and recalculated all of our occupancies for every classroom and every lab on campus. And actually, those have not even been the same for labs in classrooms, because in classrooms, people are seated and not moving around. And you can calculate a bubble around each person that is roughly, we've used an estimate of about 7 feet actually in our classrooms around each person. But in labs, we recognize that people are maybe standing at a bench, may need to move around. So there is a vastly increased space allotted per person in laboratories, and the capacities of our laboratories have gone down substantially. So we've certainly been cognizant of social distancing requirements in both classrooms where students are in fixed seating as well as in laboratories. And our Office of Institutional Planning has calculated those. The real heavy lift over the last month was then giving those numbers to our registrar's office, which had already roomed our entire fall semester. That was thrown out the window. The new occupancies were entered into our rooming system, and courses were all re-roomed. Sometimes on-campus classes didn't have a room that was big enough, and so we're going to have faculty dividing those in half and meeting with half the students at a time. So that's another sort of modified form of on-campus modality that we've instituted. But we've been really cognizant of social distancing, and that's what the social distancing will look like in our classes and labs. And of course, the facial covering mandate is going to be present inside of our classrooms and in all of our labs as well.
Thank you.
Well, I do have one question. So it's surrounding international students, just some clarification. So for
Sure.
F1 students, if I want to stay in, let's see, where did it go? If I want to stay in the US for a class, do I need to take at least one hybrid course?
Should help you, yes. So the normal rules before all of COVID-19 started was that if you were an undergraduate student in F1 status or J1 status, you have to have at least 12 credits, and then some combination of that needed to be in person. The normal rule back in the day was at least 3 online. If you're a graduate student, you have to be enrolled in at least 5 credits of that. At least 3 of them had to be some kind of in-person component. The guidance we got last week for how international students should be maintaining status in fall, so we got this last Monday, said that it wouldn't be possible to maintain status with a fully remote or fully online schedule. That guidance we got last Monday was rescinded today, and we still don't know what that means. But I would say that for whomever the student is asking, it would be a good rule of thumb to be in at least some in-person or hybrid courses. The guidance up until today that we were advising students was, be in your minimum number of courses you have to be. So again, undergraduate, at least 12 credits total, graduate, at least 5 credits total. If you're a thesis or dissertation student, that might be a bit different. You can check in with us. But or if it's your last semester, your situation might be a bit different. But apart from that, keep those minimums. And then of that, at this time, being at least one in-person or hybrid course. But again, this guidance has shifted a little bit in the last several hours today. So ISSS will be in touch with everyone about that, all the international students. Does that seem like it answers what you're asking?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Genya, we have one for you that came through. Obviously, CU Denver is not an NCAA school, but we do still have some sports on campus. So how will club sports work in the fall? Have we nailed that down yet?
You know, I don't know that I'm actually the right person to answer that question. I don't know if there's somebody from Health and Wellness who's a back panelist, but I can certainly share what I know, which is that, again, because the Wellness Center and similar to what we're doing with our student organizations and the different groups that might be meeting from a leadership standpoint, I think they're under the same guidelines that we are, which is, we're going to be sort of overseeing what that might look like, evolving our practices and guidelines, but again, have to meet and be in compliance with what our public health partners are identifying for us in terms of what our safety. David, I don't know if you have any more information on that, but in terms of specifics, I think that that's a great question that we can certainly make sure there's information available on our site, on our website, where we have an FAQ that can certainly guide students specifically to those questions. But my understanding is that as of right now, everything is currently trying to be done virtually, and I think we're encouraging students to participate in the classes that Todd Haggerty talked about a little bit when he talked about the Wellness Center fees, that there are options and ways in which students can engage in the Wellness Center virtually, but I'm not sure how that applies specifically to the club sports.
Great. We'll follow up as well on that one to make sure that it gets put up on the Safe Return website. So if you haven't visited yet, folks, there's a pretty extensive Safe Return website with FAQs for different kind of subsets of the campus, which are being added to and revised pretty regularly. So definitely jump in there and make sure that you might find some more nuggets there as well. I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Dan, do you have any for the group?
Yeah. So there's an individual who, if an individual were pregnant and were enrolled in a chemistry class, one that we already spoke about a while ago, are there any restrictions for that individual to go to an in-person lab? I know they're meeting, I think someone mentioned every 2 weeks, but it's based on the class. Would there be any restrictions for that individual who is pregnant?
I can take that one. So I think that falls under kind of a broader question. If a student does not feel safe returning to campus for on campus or a hybrid course component. And so if that's the case, we will be working with those students to provide access to that course remotely or via video recordings of the course or what other formats. We're working a kind of multi-prong approach here to make sure that we can offer the students access and have them feel safe.
Just to piggyback on what Lindsay said, pregnancy is a protected category at the university throughout CU, so it would be something we wouldn't treat you differently as a result. But we want to make sure you were safe, so we'd follow your medical provider's advice in any case.
Great, thank you both for chiming in on that. So I have a question that, again, we've seen a lot of these questions come up quite a bit, and definitely know they're top of mind for students. And one of the biggest ones has been around, kind of the value of education in such an uncertain time. And so Kelly, if you wouldn't mind kind of chiming in a little bit, and Daniel, I think your perspective as a current student would be invaluable in this, but so a couple of different types of questions. I'm uncertain about whether I should take classes, and should I just wait for the pandemic to be over? Kind of overall gist is, why should I come to CU Denver this fall?
So just a small question.
Yeah.
So I think we're all sort of in that boat of, we are living in a crazy time. And how do we make decisions about anything? I mean, I think we're all feeling uncertain. It feels like the news is changing from day to day. You think you're going in a certain direction and then everything goes in another direction. it can be really, really hard just to get a handle on your everyday life, let alone making big decisions. I will share some advice that I've heard for, how do you feel more in control when you're in circumstances that are beyond your control? And one way that people advise to do this is to look at what can you control? What are steps that you can take? And so when I think about education, we are going to be here providing education. CU Denver will be here no matter what happens. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. This is 2020 after all, but so we will be here and we will be providing an excellent education, and we are used to adapting. We're a really dynamic institution. We're in the middle of a dynamic city, and we really have that personality. We've always served diverse student groups in lots of different ways. And I think that this is just sort of accelerating for us, something that we were already planning on doing, which was, we have so many students who need so many different things. How can we deliver course modalities that meet everyone's needs? And in a way, this is just sort of accelerating what we were planning to do anyway. And we're actually really pretty good at it. We've been doing this for a while. It's not like some other institutions, maybe the first time that they're venturing into online or remote learning. We've been doing this for a while. We also have the benefit of, one of our strengths is we are, as Lindsay was saying, we're a public urban research university. And what that means is our faculty have research responsibilities as well as teaching responsibilities. So they are, they're doing important work in their field, and these are the same faculty who are teaching your classes, no matter what modality they might be. So the same faculty teach online and remote as teach our in-person classes. So that's a real strength of CU Denver as compared to some other places. I do want to share, I'm not just coming at this from the perspective of an administrator and a faculty member, I'm also coming at this from the perspective of a parent who has a college student right now. Who has a college student who was dreaming of traveling abroad. That was just something that she was just dying to do. And we've had to come face to face with the fact that, your college experience right now is going to look different than what you had thought it was going to be. And what do we do with that? And she is really making the most of it. She is actually accelerating the number of classes that she's taking. She's actually enjoying taking online classes in a way that she didn't expect. And so I don't offer this as like everything is going to be fabulous. It's just more of like, how do we readjust our expectations and come to something that is equally good, even though it's different from what we had thought that it was going to be. Earning a college degree is always going to be a valuable asset, no matter where you go, no matter who you are. Earning a college degree from CU Denver, we think is valuable for the reasons that I've just expressed, and we're really looking forward to you joining us this fall.
Absolutely. To piggy off of that, just want to kind of talk about my experience. My position as student body president, but my experience has not been a 5-star, just riding the waves. I lived in Campus Village, which is now Links Crossing. And so I was advised to leave in March. And so I went back home to Pueblo, got my old job, was taking an organic chemistry lab over Zoom, which was a very unique experience. And I think up to this point, everything is going to be a unique experience and a unique perspective on things. And I think just the faculty, the Safe Return committees have done so much work to really solidify a plan for the fall semester and the spring semester. So that student experience is valued and still valued up to this day. And I go into this fall semester excited because of the opportunities for us to grow, for people to grow. Although the battles we have faced within the past few months, not only in our nation, but across the world, I believe those battles are here to challenge us. And I think the CU Denver faculty, the students and the staff are much more resilient than we think. And I think we can absolutely get through every day, although the information, like someone mentioned, is changing every minute. I believe that the adaptation of the CU Denver community is like no other. And so I go into this fall semester, like I said, excited, ready for opportunities, ready for challenges, along with all of the other faculty at CU Denver.
Thanks.
And also just to add, sorry,
No, please.
I know there were a ton of questions in the Q&A. If you didn't see or didn't hear your question answered, feel free to email, what is the email? safer@ucdenver.edu. Yes.
And I just posted, as we kind of wrap up here, I posted a screen with a lot of different contact points across campus, many that we mentioned today. That top one in the top left-hand corner, the safe return inbox, like Dan mentioned, I can see the bubble that there are some questions that didn't get answered. It's not because we're ignoring you. In many cases, it's that, well, we have an array of specialists and experts on the panel, an invisible panel, that we don't necessarily have all the answers comprised in this group. So I would ask that you please send those questions over to the Safe Return inbox and know that it is being managed by real people. So both myself, Kelly Hupfeld, who's on here, and a few other folks have been the ones working to kind of source those answers, and so that we can get those back to you within a couple days. We want to make sure we are working as swiftly and transparently with you to make sure that you have all the information that you need as we go into the fall semester. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here today. Again, if you have some questions that are unanswered or things that come up along the way, that safereturn@ucdenver.edu email address is critical. Please use it anytime. The corresponding website, the CU Denver Safe Return website, again, will continue to change. We'll continue to add more FAQs to it. And as more information comes out, we'll definitely be sharing it there, as well as regular communications coming out from the chancellor as well as the rest of upper administration. So we want to make sure that you all have everything that you need as you make this transition. And again, I want to hit two more points that we mentioned. If you are having technology issues and access issues, that studentsuccess@ucdenver.edu email, please reach out. That team is fantastic, and they will help guide you and support you in any ways that they possibly can. The other piece there is around that same issue of whether it be technology access, housing, or food insecurity. The Loving Links Fund is also there to support you as you kind of move through these challenging times. And we really can't wait to see you on campus or virtually some way in the fall of 2020. So thanks again for spending some time with us. This webinar is going to be posted up on the Safe Return website. So if you want to reference it at all, you can find it there. So thanks again for spending your time with us. Dan, I'm going to let you close it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know the panelists, everyone on the Safe Return committees have just put in so many hours into, like I said, solidifying a plan. And I just want to thank each and every one of them, and also thank each and every one of the attendees who also created questions for us to answer. I know, like I said, there were a lot of questions, there were patterns that we saw, and so we tried as hard as or as best as possible to answer those questions with the information that we had. I think that's it on my part. Thank you, everyone. It was awesome. Hopefully we can do this again if there is further information in the next few months or semesters. Yeah, thank you, everyone.